النهارده احنا واخدينكم في لقاء بره الاستوديو. النهارده عندنا مهمه اننا نعرف اخبار البريتش كونسل ايه في مصر، ايه المهام اللي ممكن يكون بيؤديها، ايه وجه التعاون ما بين البريتش كونسل في مصر ووزاره التربيه والتعليم العالي. وبالتأكيد في أنشطة كتير جدا جدا وحجم كبير للتبادل الثقافي. معايا دلوقتي واحنا جايين له مخصوص النهاردة في يوم للستات مستر مارك هوارد, Egypt Country Director and Cluster Lead for North Africa. I welcome you in Egypt and I'm really glad that I paid this visit to you to come and to see and visit the British Council.
Yeah, well, no, thank you very much. Firstly, welcome to the British Council. It's, this is a beautiful place where we've been for many years, and it's a real pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. Mark, you've worked with the British Council for over 3 decades.
Yes.
It's a lot of time.
It is.
In various countries.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about the experience and share the experience you had until you reached Egypt? I think you began here since September 2023.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, 3 decades sounds a long time. Yeah. So I've been with the British Council for a very long time, and I've been really lucky. I've managed to sort of live and work all around the world. Yeah, I've worked in 10 different countries. I was in Latin America for a very long time, then I was in Europe, then I was in Asia, and now to be in North Africa is amazing. Yeah, so it's a privilege to be able to do that. I mean, the British Council's in 110 countries. Yeah,
so
110 countries.
Wow.
Right. So I've worked in 10 or 11, so about 10%. Yeah, but it gives you a global perspective. I think I'm very fortunate to. I'm from the UK, obviously. That's where I'm from. That's my roots. But I think I would consider myself a global citizen. I think I'm somebody that has been fortunate to live, to work, and to learn. Because I think you learn when you live in other places.
Of course. Well, since arriving in Egypt in September 2023, what have been your top priorities?
I think. With the British Council, one of our priorities always is to build strong partnerships. Yeah? It's about working with others. Yeah, I always feel, when we're in the countries that we're in, it's about listening and adapting. So I think priority for me is to come in to listen, to adapt, and to build really strong partnerships. So I remember my very first day in Egypt. I was in the new administrative capital with Dr. Ayman Ashur, who's the Minister of Higher Education, and we had 10 UK universities here. That was my very first day in the job. And since then, it's been building strong relationships with the ministry, with universities. That partnership between the UK is really important. The same for us with the Ministry of Education. Supporting English teachers, supporting teachers generally, I think is really, really important for us. And the other area where we try and build partnerships is culture. Today I was with the Minister for Tourism and Antiquities. We were in a project down in Islamic Cairo where we're renovating a mosque in Islamic Cairo. So I think supporting Egyptian heritage, which is so incredible, is a key part. So I would say building strong partnerships has really, really been the most important thing.
Mark, capacity building.
Yeah.
I really don't understand what does it mean.
You're right. Okay, I mean, I suppose capacity building is about allowing people to have the skills to release their potential. Yeah. So it could be, for example, working with teachers. So capacity building would be helping teachers to develop professionally so that they're able to teach better in classrooms. It could be working with presidents of universities. It could be looking at trying to help them with the skills and experience. So we've just sent two presidents of universities to Wales to share experiences with other university leaders. So capacity building is really like building your skills, building your experience. For me, it's all about releasing potential. And what I see in Egypt, it's an extraordinary country with so much energy and so much young people. Yeah, I think
60% of
under
the
30,
population,
which is incredible. Yeah, which is a real asset. So capacity building is how do we help those young people release their potential. It could be their language, it could be some of the skills they need. So for me, capacity building is about supporting people in releasing their potential.
Mark, the recent collaboration with the Ministry of Higher Education and Advanced highlights its growing focus on academic leadership.
Yeah.
How can you tell us, or what can you tell us about this?
Yeah, I think the strategy for higher education in Egypt is very, very exciting. I think now there are something like 3.5 million students in Egypt.
3.5 million.
Yeah, that's going to be 5 million in 2030. So that is huge. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a lot of growth. The national universities, the public universities, the international universities, and leadership will be a key part of that. You can build buildings, you can have students, but you also need to make sure that you've got the right leadership.
Of course.
Education leadership. So we're working very closely with leaders from the UK to kind of share their experiences, to work alongside. There are some incredible education leaders here in Egypt. And I think leadership is going to be a key area as that sector grows, as the universities grow. And I think Egypt will be a real hub. So we'll have students from North Africa coming into Egypt. We'll have students from the Gulf coming into Egypt. I know there are really ambitious plans. So we're happy to support. Obviously, it's supporting. I mean, Egypt knows what it needs. Egypt knows what it needs to do, and there are some really talented people. So we always try and share. It's about sharing ideas. It's not about having all of the ideas. It's about sharing and listening.
Mark, you've recently celebrated the achievements of teachers through the Teacher Excellence Award program. How do you evaluate the impact of this initiative on classroom practices and student outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to start by saying I think teachers it's one of the most important jobs in the world, actually.
And the hardest.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I want to just, recognize the incredible work that all teachers do, and so for us, teachers are an important group to support. So we do that through a number of projects which you just heard, and some of that will be helping them in the classroom, helping them reflect on their classroom teaching. We do training with those teachers, and the way we would evaluate that is kind of see how teachers feel before, and then after they've had some training, after they've had some reflection, sometimes they then report back on how they feel their teaching has changed. I think it's
with
important.
A certain program training.
Exactly.
Training programs.
Exactly. So we do input sessions with teachers, but it's also about teachers taking what they learn, taking it back into the classroom, reflecting on how it works and how it succeeds, and then coming back and discussing that with other teachers. And of course, students. The best way to evaluate how a teacher's doing is listen to what the students feel. If they're enjoying their classes, if they're making progress, then teachers are doing the right thing.
How is the British Council contributing to curriculum reforms?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always around the world. We work with many ministries, and currently here in Egypt, the minister's looking at lots of changes and developments and really positive things to look at.
Yes.
So on all areas, we would listen to what the ministry is interested in doing. We'd happy to work alongside in English, particularly because obviously, as the British Council, English is the area where we have most knowledge and understanding. So we're very keen to work with schools, to work with the ministry. We also work with private schools here in Egypt. There are 230 British schools in Egypt, which are part of the British Council schools network. So we would work very closely with private schools as well as with the ministry. Okay.
Mark, can't you help us in the progress of curriculums? Because we have curriculum issues here in Egypt.
Sure.
We have too many information in 1 year. How do you do it back in England? And can England help Egypt in the curriculum issues?
Yeah, I think the important thing is
not only in English.
Sure. I think the important thing is every country is responsible for the development in its, and our job isn't to come in and tell somebody how to do things. I think we try and share experiences from the UK. I mean, curriculum's always controversial. Same in the UK.
Really?
Any changes in curriculum will be, people will ask questions.
The students are suffering from?
Well, I don't know if it's suffering. I think curriculum's a really important framework, I think, in education you always need to be looking to move forward. You do need to be looking to change. I think change is difficult for people. I think in education, you have parents, you have students, everybody is an expert on education. Everybody has an opinion on education. I do think one of the toughest jobs is to work in education and make those decisions. So our job is just to support any decisions that people want to make here in Egypt. How can we help implementation of those decisions? I think, again, our job is to work with and to work alongside. So on curriculum, we're always happy to give a view, we're always happy to support. But I think the important thing is for people in Egypt to decide what is it that they want to do, and our job is to support people in any way that we can.
Okay. The Creative Makers program in Upper Egypt, can you tell me something about it?
No, it's a really interesting project where we're working across Egypt, even in Upper Egypt, with lots of communities, often in rural areas as well. And it's really about focusing predominantly on young people.
Where in Upper Egypt?
In near Luxor, we've got some projects there. Fayoum, not, in other areas. And so the idea is to support young people with their creative ideas, to give them a framework. I think Egypt's full of lots of young creative people. And sometimes that's an opportunity to get employment. It's an opportunity to be able to support your family, as well as express your creativity. Yeah? So it's what we would call the creative economy. So there's the creative side of it, but there's also the opportunity to support your family, find a job, to be able to be part of something a bit bigger. So it's really exciting.
What about women and girls in those rural areas? Is it difficult to approach them?
What we try and do is build trust. Yeah, so we work with local community leaders. Yeah, we're not just going to go into a community. We work through community leaders, and I think that's really important. And we have a program in what we call non-formal education. So it's not about university or schools. It's about helping young people with the skills that they need to express some of their ideas. And we're working particularly in some of those communities with women. I think it's important to give young women voices. We're also working with young people with disabilities, for example.
Yes, this is very
important.
So
some of this is trying to help groups that have more challenges, let's face it, in terms of so trying to build their skills, it's really exciting working alongside some of these community leaders as well. So again, it's back to capacity building. How can we support people in releasing their potential wherever they live?
Okay. Mark, you're also working with the Ministry of Youth and Sports, طبعا, of course, on digital innovation and civic engagement. Can you tell me about this?
Yeah, I think digital is obvious. Nowadays, young people's digital skills.
Of course.
I have a 26-year-old son. He teaches me how to use artificial intelligence.
I have the same problem with my girls.
So I think it's clearly an area that the Ministry of Youth and Sport are very focused on this.
Yeah.
I think it's about using technology and digital tools in a positive way. And I do think we need to work with young people. I think they know more than we do, so we need to learn from them. But I think sometimes giving frameworks, making young people understand the positive and the negative of digital. So it's really important for us to kind of make young people work alongside the ministry here, work alongside groups here, to help young people use technology in a positive way.
With a rich portfolio of programs across education, youth and culture, how does the British Council measure the long-term impact of its work in Egypt?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. We do things with monitoring and evaluation. So we do forms, the usual kind of ways of measuring.
Questionnaires.
Yeah, we do that kind of stuff. We do things what are called a theory of change. So before you begin a project, you say this is the change that we want to bring in, and then you're able to measure if you're able to do that. So those are the kind of tools that we use. Yeah, but to be honest, the way that I feel that we've made a difference is by listening to people's stories. Every time I go to an event, somebody will have a story about the British Council, somebody will talk about visiting the library 20 years ago, somebody will talk about taking an English language course, doing an exam. You mentioned your daughters came and studied here as well. I always say to the British ambassador, every single event I go to in Egypt, without exception, people will come up to me and they will have a personal story about how the British Council has touched their lives in one way or another. And for me, you know, you can have all of the questionnaires and they're important, you can measure things in a qualitative way.
It will not
but
reflect reality.
Actually, listening to somebody tell a story, and it can be a minister or it can be a taxi driver. Sometimes I come in on the taxi, when they drop me here, they'll have a story. The taxi driver will tell me something about how he's had an experience with the British Council. We may have a minister that said, well, I studied English when I was at school and I came to the British Council. We had one minister explaining that he visited, it took him 2 hours to come here every day to his English classes, then he took a microbus 2 hours to go back. These kind of stories for me are really reflective, I think, of the deep impact that the British Council has had here in Egypt. And I'm very proud of that.
And we're proud also. What do you see as the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenge facing Egypt? Egypt's next generation also.
Yeah, I think the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenge are those 60% of people that are under 30.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity. It's a young country. I mean, I always say Egypt is such an ancient civilization. I mean, it has given the world so much, and yet it is a very young country at the moment, yeah. I think that is a real opportunity for Egypt because those young people are going to have the energy and the drive to make Egypt even stronger than it is at the moment. So I think that's the opportunity. I think the challenge is making sure that those young people have opportunity, they have the education that they need, they have the opportunities that they need, they have the skills that they need. And I can see that there's, you know, with the Vision 2030, from that, I can see that there's a real focus on education on young people. But that's a tough job. So I think the opportunity and the challenge is the same in Egypt. It's a young country, and that overall I think is really positive. If you look at places like Japan or some of the places in Europe, there's an aging population. If you look at Egypt, it's a young, vibrant, dynamic, energetic country. It gives me a lot of optimism for the future in Egypt.
Finally, and this is my last question,
okay.
What's your vision for the British Council role in Egypt in the coming few years?
I want the British Council to remain a trusted partner. I think we live in a really, really difficult world at the moment, yeah? You know, we talk in the British Council of a peaceful and prosperous world, yeah? I mean, my hope is a peaceful and prosperous future for Egypt and a peaceful and prosperous world. I think we have to work very hard in order to do that. And I think the basis of that is trust. So, you know, my vision really remains the same with the British Council. I forgot to mention, actually, the very first British Council that opened in the whole world was in Egypt.
It was in Egypt?
In Egypt. The very first British Council anywhere in 1938 was in Egypt. That's incredible that those
1938?
1938, exactly.
Ancient,
1938,
ancient council.
Exactly. And hopefully, you know, in that time we build trust. Yeah, and I think so. So my vision remains really to remain a trusted partner, to remain an organisation that people want to come to, so that parents trust us with their children,
they do.
Institutions trust us to work, that ministry trusts us to give good advice and to work alongside. And I think to build trust, you need connections. When you have good connections, you build better understanding between our countries. And from understanding comes trust. So my vision, my wish, my hope is that we remain a trusted partner and that we have a more prosperous and peaceful world and that Egypt is able to benefit, grow and be such the special country that it is.
Amen. Mark, thank you so much. I took a lot of your time, but I enjoyed every minute.
Thank you.
I wish you all the success.
Thank you.
You're doing great job here in Egypt as British Council and as Mark.
Thank you.
So thank you again very much.
Dean, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for the interest and yeah, really look forward to continuing to work with so many people here in Egypt. Thank you so much.
إن شاء الله. Thank you.
Thank you.
نرجع بقى للاستوديو. يلا بينا.